Hi, I'm Claire, and these are my most anticipated releases of 2018. In this video, I'm only going to talk about books that are the first in a new series or that are standalone. The release dates I've included in this video all come from Goodreads, and they're correct as of right now, but they might change in future, and they might also differ country to country. I do have a few sequels that I'm really excited for, but I'm covering these in a separate blog post because I've already got 20 books to talk about in this video. And in case 20 new books isn't enough, you could also check out my podcast, Radio Free Fandom, where I recently talked to Jenny of the Reading the End bookcast about our most anticipated debut novels of 2018, and that's about 15 more books, I think, so I'll add a link to that in the description box below. And now, let's get into the books. First up, we have Robots vs. Fairies, a short story anthology that's edited by Dominic Parisian and Naval Wolf. This comes out on January the 9th from Saga Press. And as the title indicates, it's all about pitching rampaging robots against tricksy fairies, and by extension pitching science fiction against fantasy in an epic genre deathmatch. This book has a really great lineup with stories by John Scalzi, Catherine M. Valenti, Ken Liu, Max Gladstone, Alyssa Wong, and many more. Although I have a definite preference from the start for robots over fairies, I'm really interested to see how this book is going to argue the old sci-fi versus fantasy point through these short stories. I have a copy of The Starlit Wood, which was also edited by Parisian and Wolf for Saga Press, and I've enjoyed the stories I've read from that book a lot, so I trust him to pick a really cool selection of stories. Next up, we've got The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. This is a romance novel, and it comes out on January the 30th from Berkeley. It's the day before his ex's wedding, and Drew doesn't have a +1 until a power outage strands him in an elevator with Alexa, who is the perfect candidate for a fake girlfriend to be his date at the wedding. Did someone say fake dating / relationship? Because I'm so here for that. This is one of my favorite tropes to read in fanfiction, so I'm looking forward to checking it out in original fiction. I've loved reading more romance in 2017, so bring on more romance in the new year, please. I have 3 books to talk about for February, and all of them are coming out on the 13th. Let's start with Honor Among Thieves by Rachel Kane and Anne Aguirre, which comes out from Catherine Tagan Books. When petty criminal Zara chooses the wrong target to steal from, she expects to be thrown in jail for a really long time. Instead, Zara is recruited into the Honors, an elite team of humans who partner with sentient alien ships to explore the outer reaches of the universe as their passengers. I'm so excited about this blurb! Who doesn't love a good gutter rat gets recruited into cool mysterious organization instead of going to jail story? Plus, I love the idea of a sentient spaceship so much. I was obsessed with Anne McCaffrey's The Ship Who Sang as a teenager, and of course I love The Justice of Turin from Anne Leckie's Imperial Ratch trilogy. This is just my jam. It's pushing all my buttons. Next up on February the 13th is The Philosopher's Flight by Tom Miller, which is a Simon & Schuster title. This is a historical fantasy novel set in World War I America, and we follow Robert, a young man who studies and practices empirical philosophy, a female-dominated branch of science that's basically magic. He gets a place to study this cool science magic at an all-women's college and strives to earn the respect of his classmates, a host of formidable and unruly women. Now, I do love a historical fantasy, and this one sounds especially good to me because it looks like it includes a bunch of story elements that I usually love, like studying magic as a science, as well as the university setting. Also, Robert falls for a woman who's described as a disillusioned young war hero turned political radical, and I'm very excited to meet her and all the other unruly women mentioned earlier. And finally, for February, again on the same day, we've got The Lost Girl of Camp Forevermore by Kim Fu. This is published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. This is about a group of young girls who are attending Camp Forevermore together. One night they set off on a moonlit kayaking trip to a nearby island, but before the night is over, they find themselves stranded with no adults to help them survive or guide them home. This sounds great to me. I love a survival story, though I've not read many that didn't have a science fictional or fantastical setting, so this could be really interesting. I was also quite intrigued because I remember at some point earlier this year there was a lot of chatter online about what an all-female Lord of the Flies would look like, and maybe it could look like this book. In March, we're starting with some non-fiction. Bygone Badass Broads, 52 Forgotten Women Who Changed the World by Mackenzie Lee comes out on March 6th from Abrams Image. Based on Mackenzie Lee's Twitter series of the same name, Bygone Badass Broads features 52 remarkable, forgotten, trailblazing women from all over the world. With tales of heroism and cunning, in-depth bios and witty storytelling, it gives a new life to these historic female pioneers. I'm so excited about this book. I've been following Mackenzie Lee's Bygone Badass Broad Twitter threads for ages, and I absolutely love them. The way she writes about history is so heartfelt and funny. She really makes you put yourself in these women's shoes and view them as actual real people and not museum pieces. I cannot wait for that one. On March 13th, Tor.com Publishing releases Gods, Monsters and the Lucky Peach, a novella by Kelly Robson. It is the year 2267, the world has just begun to recover from worldwide ecological disaster, and Min is one of the first to move back up to the surface of the earth to reclaim humanity's ancestral habitat. Except her work restoring river ecosystems has been stalled by the invention of time travel. No big deal. And then she gets the opportunity to travel back to 2000 BC to survey the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Just so we're clear, this is the blurb for a novella. It's got so much in there already and so much of it sounds amazing. I would be delighted to see a story that was just about moving back to the surface of the earth and rebuilding, or one that was just about a 23rd century scientist going back to 2000 BC. Having both sounds bonkers in the best way. Also on the 13th of March, Chaotic Good by Whitney Garner comes out from Knopf. This novel is about Cameron, who hopes to use her cosplaying skills to get into the costume department at Caltech for college. When her family moves to a new town where the only comic book shop is owned by a dude bro who challenges every woman who walks in, she ends up dressing as a boy so she can buy comics and play D&D in peace. If I hadn't already been on board for this book because it's about a cosplayer, I would definitely have been pulled in by the cross-dressing element. This sounds pretty different from ye olde dressing as a boy to go to sea, which is a trope I dearly love, but I'm really curious to see how it's done in a modern context, and I always want more books about fandom. And now on to April with Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenti, which comes out from Saga Press on the 3rd. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Eurovision in an over-the-top science fiction spectacle in which sentient species compete for glory in a galactic musical contest, where the stakes are as high as the fate of planet Earth. Space Eurovision! Enough said, I just want to read about Space Eurovision. I'm honestly just sad that I can't live tweet Space Eurovision, sorry, Galactivision. In all seriousness, I've somehow not read anything by Cat Valenti yet, which kind of seems ludicrous because I've heard so many great things about her work. So this would be a good opportunity to fix that oversight. Also on April the 3rd, Dread Nation by Justina Ireland comes out from Bolzer and Bray. This is a historical fantasy novel set in the American South, some 20 years after the dead rose from the battlefields of the Civil War and began walking again. We follow Jane McKean, a young black woman who is finishing her education in zombie hunting at Miss Preston School of Combat in Baltimore, where she is caught in the middle of a conspiracy. This sounds really great to me. As I may have mentioned before, I do love zombie stories, especially the ones that look a little bit more in depth at how society would change in response to the threat and adapt to it. Also, who doesn't want to read about a badass zombie hunter and her badass zombie hunting finishing school? John Scalzi's Head On comes out from Tor Books on April 17th. This is a new standalone story set in the same world as his previous novel, Lock In, where thousands of people have become paralyzed and go about their day-to-day lives using robot bodies known as threeps. There's also this hyper-violent sport called Hellketa, in which players attack each other with swords and hammers with the goal of obtaining their opponent's heads and carrying it through the goalposts. Since all the players are threeps, the robot bodies, this should be safe until someone gets for real murdered. Now, I don't usually get along all that well with crime novels, but I really enjoyed Lock-In, and of course I'm a big fan of John Scalzi's writing in general. And I'm also very intrigued by the violent future sports ball where the ball is the head of another robot you've just decapitated. But then again, I do love Robot Wars, so I'm not exactly surprised that I'm excited by this particular bit. Moving on to May, on the 1st, we've got Medusa Uploaded by Emily Davenport, which comes out from Tor Books. When Oichi is suspected of being an insurgent, an all-powerful executive clan deals with it by ordering her shot out of an airlock. She's rescued by a sentient AI, a Medusa unit, to whom she becomes bonded, learning some unpleasant truths in the process. So she decides to make life better for everyone on board the Generation spaceship that used to be her home by setting things right, one assassination at a time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I really enjoy sentient AI stories, and I'm especially curious about the idea of Oichi and the Medusa unit becoming bonded together, and how we go from that to assassinations being committed in order to set things right. And of course, I'm curious about how Oichi can be an assassin, because I'm not even sure if she still has a body at that point, or if she's been uploaded to the AI and she's able to control the ship. On May 22nd, Tor Teen is publishing Anger is a Gift by Mark Oshiro. This is about a high schooler called Moss who is struggling with panic attacks after his father was murdered by a police officer and then vilified by the media. At school, Moss and his classmates find themselves increasingly treated like potential criminals. New rules, random locker searches, constant intimidation, police stationed in the halls. So they decide to organize and push back against the administration. This one is a little bit outside of what I read usually in terms of genre, but the story sounds really gripping. I really enjoy narratives of collective organization, people coming together to fight a common enemy. This all sounds great to me. I'm also not that familiar with the setting of an inner city school in the US, as I'm sure it's really different from what we see in movies all the time. I also really like Mark Oshiro and his nonfiction work in general, so that's always a plus. Adrift by Rob Beauford comes out from Orbit on June the 5th. In the far reaches of space, a group of tourists board a small vessel for a tour around Sigma Station. During the course of the trip, however, a mysterious ship with devastatingly advanced technology attacks the station. The pilot's quick, evasive action means that the small tour group can escape with their lives, but as the dust settles, they realize they may be the only survivors. Now, you know it's a good synopsis when you instinctively want to go dun 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 at the end of it. I realize this list includes several books about surviving in apocalyptic or near-apocalyptic circumstances, which may tell you something about my mindset right now in the first few days of 2018. But more seriously, this sounds like a tense and gripping story. I wanted to read it as soon as I heard the basic premise. Next, we have Drop by Drop by Morgan Llewellyn. This comes out on June the 26th from Tor Books, and it is a good old apocalyptic novel. Global catastrophe occurs as all plastic in the world mysteriously liquefies. All the small components making a host of technology possible fail. Without navigation systems, communications, medical equipment, all people can rely upon is themselves. This premise is just wonderful. Losing all the plastic in the world? All I can do is sit here and wonder about all the plastic around me. Is there plastic in the walls of my building? Is there plastic in the engine in the hull of an airplane? This would make for an apocalypse that's quite different from other scenarios that we're more used to seeing in fiction, like a worldwide zombie plague. On July the 3rd, Tor Books is releasing a new novel from one of my favorite authors. It's The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. A meteor decimates the US government and threatens to render the Earth inhospitable to humanity, pushing the space program into a radically accelerated timeline. Alma, one of the many skilled and experienced women pilots and scientists involved with the space program, begins to wonder why women can't go into space too, and she strives to become the first lady astronaut. As I said, I love Mary Robinette Kowal's writing, and I especially loved her Hugo Award-winning novelette, The Lady Astronaut of Mars. I distinctly remember it making me cry. I am really chuffed to see Mary Robinette Kowal return to that world, especially since the longer blurb on Goodreads reminded me a bit of works I loved, like Seven Eves and Hidden Figures. There is also a second book in this series coming out later in 2018, so if you love this one, there won't be a long wait for the next. Also on July 3rd, and also from Tor Books, we have City of Lies by Sam Hawke. Outwardly, Jovan is only a lifelong friend to the Chancellor's charming and responsible heir. In secret though, he is a master of poisons and chemicals, trained to protect the Chancellor's family from treachery. When the Chancellor succumbs to an unknown poison and an army lays siege to the city, Jovan and his sister Kalina must protect the heir and save their city-state. This one attracted my attention because the blurb says it's perfect for fans of Robin Hobb and Naomi Novik, and of course I love both of them. But I'm also really intrigued by the Poison Master aspect. Is it an assassin position? Does it double up as a royal physician kind of a job? I also want to know more about Jovan's sister. Speaking of Naomi Novik, next up is her new novel Spinning Silver, which comes out on July 10th from Del Rey. Miriam's father is not a very good moneylender. In fact, he has left the family on the edge of poverty, until Miriam steps in and finds that she is a very good moneylender. When her grandfather loans her a pouch of silver, she returns it full of gold. But having the reputation of being able to change silver to gold can be more trouble than it's worth. This is based on a short story Novik wrote for the anthology The Starlit Wood, and I believe that story was a retelling of the fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin. I have read a few stories from The Starlit Wood, but I haven't gotten to this one yet, so I don't know what to expect from the novel. But honestly, at this point, I trust Naomi Novik and I will pick up anything she writes. I'm really excited. On July 24th, we've got Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, and this is out from Hodder and Stoughton. The Exodus Fleet is a living relic, a place many are from, but where outsiders have seldom been. Exodans take great pride in their community and traditions, but they are grappling with difficult questions. What is the purpose of a ship that has reached its destination? Why remain among the stars when there are habitable worlds within reach? How can they maintain their carefully balanced way of life, and is it worth saving at all? This is the third book Chambers has written in her Wayfarers universe, but it's a standalone featuring a whole new set of characters. I am so excited to be getting a book about the Exodus Fleet. They are a mysterious, insular, almost cult-like group of people that is mentioned in the earlier books, and I've always been really intrigued by the concept whenever it popped up in those novels. I have a probably unhealthy fascination with stories about weird cults, so I'm really excited about this one. And finally, we've got Toil and Trouble, 16 Tales of Women and Witchcraft, edited by Tess Sharp and Jessica Spotswood. This is a YA anthology which comes out from Harlequin Teen on August 28th. From good witches to bad witches to witches who are a bit of both, this is an anthology of witchy tales from diverse feminist authors that looks at the collective strengths of women working together, magically or mundanely, and how it has long frightened society. This one looks like a lot of fun. Of course I love witches in general, but it's also really exciting to see an exploration of various different mythologies of witchcraft from different cultures that we're not necessarily used to seeing depicted in fiction. And I'm also very happy that the blurb explicitly says these stories are written from feminist points of view. So that's it, those were 20 books I am really excited to see published in 2018. I'm not saying I'm excited to read all of them because I know I probably won't get to all of them, but it just makes me so happy to see what looks like really imaginative, exciting, incisive works being created and put out into the world. I'm going to link to my most anticipated of 2018 Goodreads shelf in the description box below, so that if you're interested you can see all of the books that I mentioned in this video and in the podcast with Jenny and in my blog post all in one go. I think that's probably the easiest way to do this. Anyway, let me know which books you are most excited to read in 2018 in the comments below, whether they've come from this list or they are different books that I didn't talk about, because I'm always finding new exciting things to add to my want to read shelf on Goodreads. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video right about here, and if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face right here for new videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon. Tabby's not excited about new books, she's just excited about sleeping.